from politics.
There's no place I'd rather be than right here in America's heartland, right?
We must dare to make space for hope here once again.
To the Packers.
It is my pleasure to introduce Matt LaFleur as the 15th head coach of the Green Bay Packers.
I can't think of a greater place to be a head coach in this league.
A national spotlight shined on Wisconsin in 2019.
This is Jamie Kloss, call 911, and my jaw about hit the floor.
Mitch was married and a father of 3 young kids.
But not always for the right reasons.
The Demo brothers were reported missing on July 21st.
They were down there on a business meeting. They were looking at their cattle, and then they were supposed to come home.
A year filled with heartache.
We heard a bang, and then we heard people like yelling and running.
I can never walk down those hallways the same again.
And a year.
And I was like, man, we should do something for her because she's a big fan, you know.
We love Eileen.
I started screaming and jumping up and down.
Filled with hope.
Truly, I know recovery is possible.
I look at my kids and there's no way I ever go back. I have all the tools that I need now to stay clean and be successful.
This is the Fox 11 Year in Review for 2019. Thanks for joining us. This past year, there was no shortage of stories that touched people here in Northeast Wisconsin.
Fox 11 News is dedicated to balanced news and severe weather coverage, and Mother Nature kept our teams busy all year long. In particular, it felt like we never got a chance to dry out this year. Whether it was snow and ice or driving summer rains, flooding seemed to be a constant concern. Fox 11 meteorologist Phil DeCastro takes us back through our floods of 2019.
If we're going to talk about this year's floods, we need to set the stage first. It's late February, and we've just come out of one of the snowiest 4-week stretches on record in northeast Wisconsin. The land is packed with snow, rivers are choked with ice, and the ground is frozen solid. So when northeast Wisconsin saw rain on 4 consecutive days, March 12th through the 15th, what followed might as well have been unavoidable. Ice jams on the Fond du Lac River had city crews feverishly working to clear them from bridges in downtown Fond du Lac.
The problem is it gets to the mouth of the river, it's all ice out there. So even if it moves out there, it's not going to go nowhere because the mouth's full of ice still.
In Brown County, the East River flooded out dozens of homes, and worse yet, it happened in the middle of the night.
It was 3:30, so I got out, opened up the garage door, water started just going into the basement. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? So I look out the window, the water was actually all the way up to the last step to go into the house.
Both the East River and the Fox River were still frozen solid, and the water had nowhere to go except spilling over its banks. The Fond du Lac River would again spill its banks in October, flooding Fruth Field for the second time this year. The hometown Fond du Lac High School Cardinals had to move their homecoming game in order to let the field recover before playoffs.
With the amount of rain and the amount of moisture that's been on this field over the last week and a half here, any more would almost make the field completely unplayable.
But all this runoff had to go somewhere, and that somewhere was the Great Lakes. Lake Michigan ran at near historic levels in the second half of 2019, including into the beginning of this winter. Every time a storm would kick up an onshore wind along the lake or Green Bay, the high levels made their presence known. In Manitowoc, high surf toppled a light beacon along a break wall in January.
I turned to both sides and looked around, and then I kind of cleared my eyes to see if I really was seeing what I saw. It floated probably for about 5-6 seconds, and then it sunk after that.
Marinas and parks in Algoma and Kewaunee saw high water invade their parking lots numerous times, and in low-lying areas in and around Swamico, Howard, and Green Bay, seemingly any northerly wind would drive water up into boat launches and even threaten some homes. With lake levels forecast to stay high and another wet winter possibly on tap, some of the flooding problems in 2019 may very well spill over into 2020. Meteorologist Phil DeCastro, Fox 11 News.
2 destructive days in July scarred northeast Wisconsin's landscape for years to come. Straight-line winds sawed trees in half and flattened massive forests in the North Woods. Tornadoes also tore through some communities across the Fox Valley. It took weeks for some folks to pick up the pieces. Others are still cleaning up the damage left behind by those summer storms.
I was so scared. I really thought I was going to die.
It was just utter destruction.
The big tree was just kind of going. I thought to myself, it's going to go.
I just see the trees just laying like flat and things that are blowing across the street and you can barely see anything and like you just hear this howl and all of a sudden this scraping and I was like, oh no, like a roof came off or something.
All of a sudden we hear a crash and I got a big branch on my car and more have proceeded to fall on it since.
Some of the area's biggest stories happened in the heart of the Fox Valley in 2019. Hundreds piled up in the largest crash in state history, and Appleton lost a firefighter in the line of duty. Fox 11's Monique Lopez has a look back.
Okay, put your hazards on for me. I know it's really difficult.
232 people, 119 vehicles, 1 death. If you live in the Fox cities, chances are you remember February's pileup on I-41 in Neenah.
I just started crying because it's just, you know it's not good when you see all the ambulance and still just whiteout conditions. We were slowed way down, but it's just, it freaks you out because it's just, you know it's not good.
Deputies and officers from several agencies battled 10-degree wind chills, whiteouts, and a sea of twisted metal and broken glass.
I'm into my 27th year in law enforcement, and that was the largest, most complicated scene I've ever witnessed.
Less than 3 months later, the Valley would take another heart-wrenching blow on the afternoon of May 15th.
For the man who took my little brother, you hurt me in a way that I did not know I could hurt.
That night would end with the death of one of Appleton's own, firefighter Mitch Lungard. It all started as a call for help to the Valley Transit Center.
I don't know if he's sleeping or having some kind of seizure or something, but we need an ambulance as soon as possible.
Reuben Houston appeared to be having a seizure on a bus. In a matter of minutes, the routine medical call turned deadly.
We got a firefighter down. Shot.
Police body cameras show officers try to persuade Houston to go to a hospital before he walks back and starts shooting, one of those shots being the deadly shot into Lungard. Police shot Houston. It was one of 4 fatal police shootings in the Fox Valley this year.
Countless times he had always said, I'll be there for others. Well, buddy, we are all now here for you.
The city of Appleton mourned for days after losing Lungard.
This is the final call for driver engineer Mitchell F. Lungard, a dedicated father and husband, courageous firefighter dedicated to his career. Your dependability both on and off the job and your quick wit will forever be remembered and missed. May you always watch over us from your new firehouse in heaven.
In July, the brothers who owned a Seymour livestock business disappeared in Missouri. Nick and Justin Diemel flew to a small town outside of Kansas City to collect some money from Gardland Nelson. Police say Nelson killed the Diemels and burned their bodies. Nelson's charged with murder. His case picks up again in January. And in December, a gunshot inside Oshkosh West High School sent students running for safety.
We heard a bang, and then we heard people like yelling and running.
Nervous parents waited for hours to be reunited with their kids. Police say 16-year-old Grant Furman repeatedly stabbed school resource officer Mike Wissink, who shot the teenager during the attack. The student told police he wanted the officer's gun, but didn't know what he'd do once he had it. Furman is charged with attempted murder. Monique Lopez, Fox 11 News.
One teenage girl's story of survival gripped the state and the country for months at the start of the year.
Jamie Claus's story actually starts in October of 2018. The girl was kidnapped after her parents were murdered at their home in Barron. She wasn't seen or heard from again in almost 3 months. But less than 2 weeks into 2019, Jamie was found alive. She had escaped from a cabin about an hour away from her home, wandering through the snow until she finally found help.
She just said, I'm lost and I don't know where I am and I need help.
Jake Patterson was arrested almost immediately after Klaus was found. Patterson is now serving 2 consecutive life sentences in prison for Jamie's kidnapping and the murder of her parents.
It was nearly impossible to escape politics in 2019. From Madison to D.C., Wisconsin played a starring role.
That's next. But before we go to break, a look at Northeast Wisconsin through the eyes of Sky Fox.